So this is a juvenile three-ridge mussel sitting on an adult.
There's a slightly middle,
and there's a middle-sized one. Oh, very cool.
And that's the adult.
And these are all the same species?
Yeah, these are all buckets. And it's a common species here, quite a dominant species at this site. But one of the things that we like to look for when doing this sort of work and setting up these monitoring stations for these populations is to look for evidence of reproduction.
Right,
and make sure that there's multiple life stages, multiple size and age classes and things like that. So just an example of the range that species comes in. And if you take a look at the two smallest ones here, you can still see that they have these byssal threads attached to them. And they attach them to these rocks, and they use those to anchor themselves in the substrate when they're juveniles, so they don't get washed and displaced downstream. But by the time they hit about this stage, they've lost that byssal thread now, so they're just burrowing in the substrate, and they're able to maintain their position that way. Interestingly enough, we have one of our species at risk, the rayed bean, which as an adult is only about the size of this one, actually maintains the byssal thread throughout its adult stage. It's the only uni that we have that does that.
So those are juveniles, which is a good sign they're reproducing. The adult here, how old roughly would you say that individual is, or how long does it take to reach that size?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can start sort of walk through them all. This is probably in its first year of life. You can see this one is probably 2 to 3 years of age. If you look at the dark growth lines, you can roughly approximate their age that way. So it's about 2 to 3, and these ones are maybe a year or two older along the way. The larger animals, it gets hard to age them, and we really do that by taking thin sections of the shell.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to do it from the outside, because as you get towards the older ages, the growth lines get very close together, and you can't reconcile them. But these animals, probably 25 to 30 years of age, I would say, for those. We do have some of our other species that get quite a bit older than that. Things like the maple leaf, which is federally endangered. We're doing some aging on that right now. But we believe they're in the 65 to 70 plus years.
So around the same as a human lifespan, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah. So I know, and that's part of what leads to their imperiled status, is the fact that they're living in one place for a very long period of time with limited ability to move, and certainly no ability to invade new habitats.
So if they were, at what point do they become reproductively active, would you say?
Again, it probably varies by species, but it's usually fairly young. It's probably in the 5 to 6 years.
And would they have broods each year?
Yeah, that's something that we really don't know. We've been doing some work on the wavy rayed lamp mussel, which is federally endangered, over the last few years in this river, just a little bit upstream from here, and we're seeing that over a 2-year period. Not all of the animals are appearing at the surface and displaying each year, so they're probably not reproducing every year, maybe every couple of years.
I see.
But it's one of the things that we're looking at, trying to figure out so that we know how to better manage the species and their recovery.
So they've got a very long lifespan, a relatively long generation time in terms of reaching maturity, and they may not be reproducing any more than once every 2 or 3 years. So again, these are all factors that affect how susceptible they are to environmental change and so on.
Absolutely, and then of course that complex life cycle where they're oviparasites just adds that to the equation as well, and complicates things. So you have to have the host. And all that,
one of the dangers of specialization.
Yes, absolutely.